Welcome to a Bestow TV production. If you enjoy our content, please click the subscribe button. To get notifications of new releases, ring that bell. Thank you, and away we go.
When are you and Batman gonna get hitched?
Get hitched? Oh.
When are you and Brucey gonna...
See, he says it's complicated, but I say it's easy. It is what it is. I don't need anything different.
Here at C2E2, we're going to be bringing you live coverage from artists, writers, and cosplayers. Hopefully some stars along the way. We hope you stay tuned to the rest of our coverage here at C2E2 2013. Aren't you in the Justice League right now?
You don't know my intentions there. I am not obligated to talk about it.
You're not obligated to talk about it. You're on video right here. We're talking with Dark Horse Editor-in-Chief Scott Allie. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. How'd you get started in comics?
I was working for a literary magazine in Portland, Oregon, and saving money to do my own comics. Self-published a book for a little while in the early 90s, and that caught the eye of Dark Horse because we were in the same town. And when they needed an editor and I had run out of money self-publishing, they offered me a job.
What occurred then? What'd you start doing at Dark Horse, changing things maybe?
But I was lucky enough really early on to get assigned as the editor for Hellboy. So like within like a month and a half of starting at Dark Horse, I was editing Mike Mignola, and that just sort of kind of set the whole thing rolling.
What about Hellboy interested you?
I love horror comics, I love monsters, and I like old-fashioned stuff. I don't really like, gore and TNA in my horror that much. And Hellboy was this great version of like a cool early Universal horror movie set in, like a sort of a superhero world. And it just like really appealed to me on every level. And Mike and I hit it off with a lot of similar, interests.
Now as editor-in-chief, what have you been trying to do to make the company better, more noticeable?
I'm just working with the other editors to get the best talent that we can, to really make sure that the stories are solid in the books. Mike Richardson, Randy Stradley, and I try to work with all the different guys in the department to just make sure we're always, up in our game and getting the best new properties in and trying to really go after exciting creator-owned stuff, because I think we were one of the great homes for creator-owned stuff the mid-'80s, and I think we need to work harder to remind people of that. We got Hellboy, we've got these great books, but I want to make sure we keep getting new ones.
Yeah, you guys have been moving along towards acquiring different assets like Star Wars. What's been your interest in doing that?
Properties like that translate to comics really well because they tell great stories about dynamic characters. Like we just started doing Halo comics. Halo has this beautiful visual world that translates well to comics and brings with it a pre-existing audience. So you get the potential to reach new people, get new people into comic shops with material that is very well suited for the format, for the art form.
What about Halo specifically? Did you guys want to bring on as a part of your arrangements?
Well, sci-fi comics are something that I think we do really well after many years of Star Wars. Halo just has a big, bold, epic world to it, and like Star Wars, there's a lot of room to grow in there. So there's a lot of room for original stories, and we've had a lot of success with books like Mass Effect, and so by teaming with another company like that and working really, really directly with the creative talent on the game, we think we know how to make a great comic.
How back and forth, especially with Hellboy becoming a couple movies, how directly are you involved in that process as Dark Horse, essentially?
Dark Horse is very involved. I personally don't have anything to do with it, but Dark Horse produced the Hellboy films. Mike Richardson, the founder of Dark Horse, was executive producer on those movies, on the current R.I.P.D. movie that's about to come out. So, in that way we're very involved. But the comics and the films are also sort of a separate thing,
How much input when you're doing video games like Halo coming up, how much input does Microsoft have, and how much you guys put together?
Basically as much as they want, they own the property, they control the property, and so they, what we try to do is from the get-go, create as much of a collaborative relationship as we can so that we bounce ideas back and forth. And you're not just, sometimes with a licensor, you just submit material and they say yes or no, and that doesn't really result in the best product. So we try to work with these guys so that it's a dialogue and we're coming up with the ideas together.
What else do you guys have coming up?
Well, we've got lots more Hellboy stuff. We've got other video game properties that are going to be debuting with us. One of the biggest Star Wars announcements that we've made in a while, the thing we did with Brian Wood, the ongoing Star Wars series, has been the biggest hit we've had in a long time. We're going to follow that up with an adaptation of George Lucas's original screenplay, which is going to be very big for us, using the original like Ralph McQuarrie designs. It's a very different story than the movie that ultimately got made, but it's the foundation, and we think it's going to be real interesting for people to be able to see it in the visual medium of comics.
You brought up that George Lucas original screenplay. How'd you go about acquiring the rights to that?
It was something we discussed with Lucasfilm for a long time, and you know, they own it all, and we are their comic book licensors. So it was mostly a question of would they let us add it to our line? Would they let us do it? And eventually they felt like it was a good idea, and we got to do it.
All right, thanks a lot, Mr. Allie.
I self-published a book for a little while in the early 90s. Bless you. Self-published a book.
Hope you enjoyed this.
Watch Creative Continuity, Codtoons, Con Rewind, Mr. Lobo Does, and more on this channel.
Creative Continuity. We bring the convention to you.